The funniest part is American citizens wouldn't even be talking to Chinese citizens if the US government didn't try to ban TikTok because they claimed TikTok was going to push Chinese communist propaganda, right? And then a bunch of Americans went and joined an app specifically designed for Chinese citizens that was cleared by the Communist Party of China. And then suddenly we have cross-cultural exchange between American citizens and Chinese citizens. American citizens start to realize that Chinese people are people. That honestly, it feels good that some of y'all, I know you don't travel, but you're like, oh my God, look, they have groceries like us. That blew my mind. A lot of y'all were like, they have houses like that. It feels weird. I don't know what you thought they were doing in China. Feels weird. But the opposite side of that is the fact that the Chinese thought a lot of true things about us were actually communist propaganda from China. That is fucking, they thought their government was lying on us. Like, I've seen the comment sections where people would be like, yo, our government, the Chinese government said that y'all Americans have to pay for your own ambulances. Like, that's crazy. That's like a lie. They're like talking shit on capitalism, and legit Americans have to be like, no, for real, we have to pay for our own ambulances. Like, ambulances aren't free. And they're like, yo, what? Okay, but like that bullshit about your kids possibly needing like a bulletproof backpack, like that's crazy. And we're like, oh, oh.
Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here, that means you love diving into trending topics, viral debates, and the wide conversation happening all over social media. And trust me, today's topic is mind-blowing. So the US government tried to ban TikTok, claiming it was pushing Chinese propaganda. But instead of pulling people apart, it did the exact opposite. Americans and Chinese citizens started talking more than ever, and let me tell you, both sides had some hilarious and shocking realizations about each other. Imagine Chinese people thinking we are the ones being lied to, only to find out, yeah, we really do have to pay thousands for an ambulance ride. And Americans, they are finally realizing China isn't some dystopian mystery land. It's just people living their daily lives like everyone else. But what does this say about government, narratives, media influence, and how we understand each other? That is what we are diving into today. If you are new here, make sure to like, comment, and subscribe because we break down viral moments like this every day. Now let's get into it.
What I find funny is Americans learning that they're the bad guys in the world. Like if reality was an anime, they're the Britannia. They're the bad guys that we need to stop. It's just funny.
This is what I'm trying to understand as well, because same amount of videos I'm seeing people talk about, oh my gosh, they have universal healthcare, oh my gosh, the taxes are, oh, look how much farther their money goes, etc. And a few things. Number one, I know we all have the internet and we all have Google. I know in Canada some of our stuff is censored, but like you guys in the US, the information is there. Now, is it that you guys are a victim of, the propaganda or whatever is spewed out that America's the best, America we don't care about? So because of that, there's a lack of interest or curiosity about how other people are living in this world? I literally can name, like off the top of my head, 5 other nations that have universal health care, that have better social services for their people, that like I'm just so flabbergasted. I can't believe I used that word. Again, some of this stuff I feel like it should be common knowledge, or at least like the information is there. But this is another reason why I advocate for traveling, because as Rick Stevens, I love PBS. He always says like it's the biggest deterrent of like prejudice and all this other stuff, because you actually go and see how other people live. And then you realize that we are all the same. We're just speaking different languages. We have different skin complexion. We have different cultures. But at the end of the day, people want to feel safe. They want to live well. They want to make sure their kids are okay and that they have enough food to eat at the end of the day. So I guess shout out to this new app where you guys are learning all of this stuff, but take it a little bit deeper. Take it a bit deeper. You see how they're living in China? Hey, let's explore how are other people living in other parts of the world. Let's continue to enrich ourselves on other people's culture.
No, the real funniest part is you liberals who criticize the U.S. government for invading and forcing Western values upon Iraq are now the ones who are celebrating invading and forcing Western values upon a Chinese app that was made exclusively for Chinese citizens and no one else. Citizens who, by the way, didn't ask for you and largely do not want you there.
You are such a bold-faced liar, bro. The amount of videos that I've seen from Chinese citizens saying they don't want Americans on their app is astounding because of how they treated the Chinese people. I heard stories of Americans going into live streams of Chinese people and calling them racist for having afros and disrespecting their culture. There are videos of Americans saying they got banned from the app because they wouldn't follow the rules. Why don't you stop acting like it was all one big kumbaya moment? I made video after video after video talking about how embarrassed I was to be an American because of how they were treating the Chinese people. Hate the Chinese government, but the Chinese people, they didn't deserve that. It's funny how they wouldn't, you all talk all this crap about being anti-colonial and stuff like that, but then you were more than willing to colonize an app just because you had nowhere to go. Get real.
Actually, the funniest part is coming. The funniest part is when Red Note IP bans Americans from using that app because they don't want to deal with y'all's bullshit anymore. Like, that's what's happening. They're going to be like, nah, we don't need your data and we don't need you here because you guys are assholes, you're entitled, and you don't care about our rules, our culture. Like, people are already getting banned on there for saying things and doing things that that app does not allow. Like, I can't wait. Like, I really hope that does happen because it's going to be so fucking funny. It's going to be hilarious. But yeah, we'll see.
And the more we learn about China on Red Note, the more we realize how shitty we have it here.
I know we don't have to listen to them, right? Like, think about it. There are more people than billionaires. The only difference is the people in the uniform. Like I said this before on my other account. Once you put that uniform on, you know what side you're on, and you know which side you pick. That's literally all it is. We don't have to listen. What are they going to do? Send robots after us? Like, does nobody think about this part? We don't have to listen to them. Like, the people we actually have to worry about, the people who make the money, which is workers, and people in the army. That's it.
Alright, let's dive straight into it. So, this whole situation is honestly one of the biggest ironies of the past few years. The US government spent so much time and energy warning people that TikTok was dangerous, that it was some tool for Chinese propaganda, and that America needed to be protected from it. But instead of stopping any kind of cultural influence, the attempted ban actually created more interaction between Americans and Chinese citizens than ever before. And now we are seeing both sides realize that a lot of what they believed about each other wasn't exactly accurate. Let's start with the American side. Many Americans grew up being fed this idea that China was a dystopian, overlaid, controlled society where people didn't have any personal freedoms. And sure, the Chinese government is authoritarian, there is no denial that. But what people fail to realize is that regular Chinese citizens aren't just walking around in some scientific movie where they are all brainwashed and living in identical grey apartments. They have normal lives, grocery stores, restaurants, and entertainment and personal interests just like everyone else. And now, because of TikTok, Americans are actually seeing it for themselves. Before, if you wanted to know what life in China was like, you had to rely on news outlets, documentaries, or maybe a travel vlogger. But now, Chinese citizens are showing their daily lives in real time. They are posting clips of their shopping experiences, their homes, their street food, and just regular, everyday things. And for a lot of Americans, this is completely new. There are TikTok comments like, wait, you guys have supermarket like us, or your apartment look just like ours. And it's almost funny because shows how little people actually knew before this whole TikTok situation forced them to pay attention. But then you have the flip side. how Chinese citizens see Americans, and this part is actually even crazier because a lot of them genuinely believe that we were the ones being brainwashed by propaganda. There are Chinese TikTok users who straight up thought their government was lying to them when they were told that Americans have to pay for ambulance rides. Like, they thought it was satire or some kind of exaggerating propaganda designed to make the US look bad. And then when they started talking to real Americans who were like, no, seriously, if you call 911, you are getting a bill, they were shocked. There are also a ton of Chinese TikTokers commenting things like, wait, you guys don't have universal healthcare. How is that possible? Or you have to take out loans just to go to the hospital. And you can tell that a lot of them genuinely thought capitalism in America meant that everyone was living in luxury and that only extremely poor people struggled. They had no idea that things like medical debt, student loans, and homelessness were the widespread. And honestly, that's the real takeaway from all of this. Both sides were fed a version of reality that left out their details. Americans were led to believe that China was this completely restricted, robotic society where people were miserable, while Chinese citizens were led to believe that the US was some capitalist utopia where everyone was striving and free. But the truth, it's way more complicated than that. Now, of course, the political difference still exists. China is heavily censored, their government does control a lot of their media, and there are definitely real concern about how much surveillance happens over there. But what Americans are starting to see is that Chinese people hasn't all brainwashed government's puppets. They are people. They joke around, they have internet debates, they make memes, and they even criticize their own government in ways that many Americans thought was impossible under Chinese censorship. It turns out that even with all these restrictions, people always find ways to communicate and express themselves. And for the Chinese side, a lot of them are starting to realize that America isn't this perfect land of opportunity where hard work guarantees success. They are seeing that the US has huge systemic problems, and in some ways, their own government was right when it criticized American capitalism. Not because China's system is necessarily better, but because every country has its own struggles. What is really wild is that none of this would have happened if the US hasn't made TikTok such a big deal. Think about it, if there had been no banned attempt, no political drama, most Americans wouldn't have even thought about whether or not TikTok was a tool for Chinese propaganda. They would have just kept scrolling, watching dance trends and comedy videos. But because the government tried to scare people into believing that TikTok was dangerous, they accidentally encouraged millions of Americans to start actively paying attention to Chinese culture. And once that door was open, people started having direct conversations across borders in a way that had never really happened before. And honestly, it's probably freaking out some of the people in power, because when citizens from different countries start talking to each other without government or media filters in the way, they start realizing that a lot of the narratives they have been fed hasn't 100% true, and that makes it harder for government to control public perception. So what's the lesson here? Censorship and government control over information always backfires. The more you try to force people to see the world a certain way, the more curious they get about what you are hiding. If the US has left TikTok alone, we probably wouldn't even be having this conversation. But because they tried to make it a national security issue, now Americans and Chinese citizens are talking more than ever. And the funniest part, TikTok itself is still here. It hasn't been banned. The so-called Chinese propaganda machine didn't take over. Instead, the only thing that is changed is that now millions of people on both sides know a little more about each other's reality. So shout out to the US government for trying to ban TikTok and accidentally causing one of the biggest cross-cultural wake-up calls of our time. And shout out to the Chinese TikTokers who now understand that yes, Americans really do have to pay for ambulances. Welcome to the reality of American capitalism. But now I want to hear your thoughts. Did this whole situation change how you see China or the US? Do you think Americans and Chinese citizens will keep this conversation going? Let me know in the comments, and if you enjoyed this breakdown, don't forget to like, subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss more deep dives like this. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one.